up? I got Naskin here with me. This ain't a diss song, but yeah, you know what it is. I'm a cheesehead, y'all niggas cheese whiz. Pittsburgh Steelers, that's nothing. That Super Bowl ring, that's nothing. Pull up in your town when you.
Yeah, I guess I'd say it was nice to be back outside in the stadium after 1 year doing it from here, actually. But yeah, no, I thought the meeting went well. Yeah, it was the first time Brian has given a report outside. Last year was so different, but yeah, not a lot new. Rich, I know you're looking for nuggets that I could give you. The Titletown homes, I think that's a little. Some of the sketches were different, and we're looking forward to that. I think I think there'll be a lot of interest. Well, we know there's a lot of interest from people that have signed up, online, and now with the sales agent going out, I think we're expecting that there'll be quite a bit of interest in those homes.
Talk about what the economic impact of this franchise was going to be when you were going to take two coaching staffs, dive headlong into free agency the way you have, and some of the other factors that led to such a drop in the finish numbers.
Yeah, no, it's in some ways it's the cost of doing business in our league. We've been very fortunate that we've had continuity. Both Mike and Ted. I mean, they were obviously worked well together. Over 12 years together, and this year I think it's 2 years in a row we've had coaching changes, because last year was both Ted and Dom Capers, and the defensive staff, and this year obviously Mike McCarthy and his staff. So that contributed to having lower profits than we've had in the past, and then but it was also the concussion settlement, and I view that as a positive. We reached agreement on a tremendous settlement with our former players, doing right by them. The costs have been a little more than we anticipated, so we were assessed. Additional expenses there, and then obviously the signings, and I think most people would say those are good investments in our team. So, but I anticipate that next year our profits will go back to the levels that they have been in the past.
Mark, you continue to express the desire to play in Europe, but as you know, road teams don't want to give up the gate that the Packers draw.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can actually do as an organization to break that pattern, or are you kind of just stuck in this?
Well, we're not going to give up a home game, or one of our home games. It's just too important. I think a couple. Looking up at opponents that we have on the road, there are some situations where the league can require a team to play an international game. They usually get to protect a game, and we tend to be the one that they protect. But we'll see. I think working with the league, that would be our hope. Because I think, quite honestly, I think it'd be great for our fans, but I think it'd be good for the league too to have an organization or a team like the Packers, who are so popular globally, for us to play overseas. The other down the road, looking at potentially different structure to the season. One of the benefits of potential 17 game would be it would be a little easier to have international games.
The situation with the LA Chargers, was it disheartening that you weren't able to get that game in Europe specifically?
Yeah, that was one that we thought there was a chance. I mean, the Rams game last year, kind of the same thing, but those of you that were at the Rams game, you can see why they didn't give it up. There were, I think more than half the fans there in a huge stadium were Packer fans. The Charger Stadium is relatively small, but we're looking forward to going out to LA, and we'll have to be satisfied with Winnipeg for now. So,
Mark, with discussions about possibly going to an 18-game regular season as a revenue source, shouldn't teams consider an example of Patriots Village or Titletown as other sources of revenue that rather than change the structure of the season?
That's something that we're we're discussing, we're talking to the players about it. Obviously there's concerns about the health and safety of our players, and so we're looking at different options. The other reality, quite honestly, Mike, is the quality of our preseason is not great, and I think it's declining as we go along. Fewer and fewer starters are playing in preseason games. So I think we're looking at a number of different options, but it's not all about revenue. I think we also need to do what's right by our players and the fans. We're unique, I think, in terms of being able to support and invest in a project like Titletown. It's just not. It's a little more difficult for some of the other teams to do something like that.
With the continued growth of the NFL draft, I mean, you see these huge crowds wherever they're being hosted. How realistic do you think your bid is now? Does it feel like maybe it's kind of gotten away from you?
No, I don't think so, Aaron. I think unlike the Super Bowl, where only so many cities could host Super Bowls, I think the draft is something that I think the league is going to try to move around the different cities in the league, particularly those that will never be able to host a Super Bowl. So, I mean, if you look at kind of where they've gone, there's been some of those. And obviously, we're probably not going to get 600,000 people here for 3 days, but
But that's what I mean. Like, it's gotten so big so quickly.
I don't think it's all about the revenue. I think it's, given our history and tradition, and the reality is, for us, the Bears fans, Viking fans, they could drive up for a day. So you don't have to have 50,000 hotel rooms. So we're gonna keep pushing for it because I think it'd be great for the organization and the community.
In your conversations with the league about this, have they expressed anything that needs to be done around the city to make that more of a possibility? Is it just the hotel rooms? Is there other stuff involved with that?
Well, the having an expo hall. I don't know if you've seen some of the plans. That fills a real need. We anticipate that a lot of the events, if we hosted the draft, a lot of the events would be centered there with the rest center. The league, it would have to be a different type draft. I think it would be focused on our history and tradition, what the unique relationship between the Packers and the community and our unique ownership structure. But I think it will be rotated around quite a few teams. A lot of teams have applied to host it as well, though, in cities.
When you look at the football structure of your team and the economics of it, when you have a quarterback that's obviously paid the way Aaron is, why do you think you guys were still able to go out and spend some of that money on the defensive side, and why do you think that Brian felt it was necessary to do that?
Well, I think Brian mentioned it in his comments. We're very fortunate. I mean, Russ Ball is as good as it comes in the league in terms of managing our salary cap. And the league, Rob. When you pay a franchise quarterback, it's a challenge. But I think we've done it in a way where we've been able to invest in other areas. That's Brian's. Brian felt we needed to make those changes, and as I said before, I'm very supportive of that. And I think particularly when you look at those 4 players, their best years should be ahead of them. It's not like somebody in his 10th year and who may be declining. I'm very pleased with that.
Defensive player yourself, what can happen?
Nothing better than a pass rush.
Especially if it takes Aaron and Matt a little bit, the offense a little bit to get going. Do you feel like you have a defense now that can, sort of hold you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I think I'm anticipating improvement just the second year of Mike's system. I think familiarity. We've got some really good young defensive players, and then you add in you know, the players that we had in free agency, I think we have a chance to be a much improved defense.
I know there's a lot of factors that went into it, but.
Good to see you again. You were down in Milwaukee at our.
When you see the numbers and you see the profit drop, just how concerned are you overall?
No, I'm not concerned at all. It, you know, I think as we explained, those were rather unique expenses, non-recurring, and you know, I think if you look at, and this is very general, you know, the national revenue that we receive from the league is roughly $280 million, roughly, and our player costs, I think, were $230 million if you include, so that's our biggest expense, and we're covering it with national revenue even before you add in any local revenue. So it's yeah, we're very stable financially and feel very confident in our future. You know, now long term, you know, the key is you know, what's the next collective bargaining look like? Our next collective bargaining agreement. That's why I think the current agreement has worked well. We've got 2 years remaining. It would be nice if we could keep the current structure of the collective bargaining agreement moving forward.
Are you okay with the pace of bargaining, if there even has been some, or, I mean, you know, deadlines get here faster than you know?
Yeah, you know, we've had a number of sessions, I think 4 already. I've participated in a number of them. We have another one coming up. So we'll see. I think, you know, certainly it would be great to have an agreement done sooner rather than later, but, you know, we also have a pretty good agreement in place as well.
How difficult do you think it might be for the two sides to reach an agreement, given all that's transpired over the past couple of years?
You know, I'm still optimistic. You know, I think at the end of the day, the current agreement is working pretty well for everybody. You know, I think 6 years in a row with the salary cap growing by more than $10 million. The investments that we're making in stadiums, you know, revenues continuing to grow. You know, I think our ratings are strong. We should be positioned well for the future. And, you know, the way it's been structured, the players get a higher percentage of national revenue, the national broadcast revenue. And I see that as growing in the future.
Mark, I know you kind of joked a little bit about maybe getting off to a slow start, you know, a little bit and stuff like that, but is that a legitimate concern that some people may feel like this is a transition year with a new coach and just a lot of new moving parts, so to speak?
I don't remember joking about that. But, so, no, it's, you know, there's always a transition period. Maybe you were thinking of the transition area in the title town that I was talking. No, no, you know, like I said, I have tremendous confidence in Brian and now Matt. And I mentioned a little bit, you know, one of the things that really gives me confidence for the future is the relationship that I've seen develop between Brian and Matt. The communication is excellent, and I think that really bodes well for the future.
Are there things you saw this spring from Matt LaFleur, his staff with players that encouraged you? And is there a coach out there that maybe you've had experience with that Matt LaFleur reminds you of?
Well, first of all, yeah, in the spring, I've been very impressed with Matt. I think the way he's come in, and I think, as I mentioned in the report, immediately has gained the respect of the players. And the other thing, if you, and I don't know how much you have access, but to some of the player areas, team meeting areas, I think he's made some changes, but he's been sensitive to the history and tradition of the Packers. But I think he's done some really smart things that the players have noticed, and he's made it all about our team now and our players, while still recognizing the great history and tradition that we have. Yeah, you know, I've dealt with a lot of coaches over my career, and now I'm very excited about Matt. I think that was, normally we wouldn't dedicate that much time to a video, But I thought for our shareholders with a new head coach, for them to see that interview with Larry, to get a feel for, Matt and the kind of person he is. He's a tireless worker. I mean, he is here nonstop. And, particularly putting the staff together, was very impressed. Even though he's relatively young, he's got a lot of contacts across the league that really impressed me. And, you can tell. I mean, he's grew up in a football family. He's, been around it. And I think, I think he is a good fit for Green Bay, having come from Michigan. And, I'm excited about his leadership. I think he's going to do a good job for us. And I didn't mention it, Lance, but there will be a transition. I mean, and hopefully not very long. But I think I have a sense, you get a little bit of it from the fans today. I think there's genuine excitement. And that's I wanted to make sure that I paid respects to Mike McCarthy. Obviously, did a great job here. It was a very difficult decision, and it's hard to make. It's always hard to make a change, but particularly when somebody's been here as long as Mike has and had the kind of success that he's had. But as you get through it, now you can start to see some light, and I think we're all excited about the future and anxious to see how the team will perform under Matt's leadership.
Convinced the Titletown district can sustain if this team has an extended tough time on the field?
Yeah, well, not only will Titletown, that was the intent of Titletown, is to, diversify our revenue, and, make Green Bay even more of a destination for fans. But I think beyond Titletown, I mean, I think, the current collective bargaining agreement, hopefully we'll have one similar to that in the future, with the revenue sharing and the salary cap, really protect an organization like us.
That was interesting what you said about Houston being an ideal joint practice candidate because it gives them kind of a reprieve from the weather down there.
Sure.
Would you like to see more joint practices? I mean, it's been over a decade since that's happened. And could that be a strategy going to southern cities and southern teams and
Come on up.
Well,
some of us remember the old cheese league, that training camp's different now. I think that's something that, and a lot of it is dependent on the coach. I don't think Mike was necessarily against joint practices, but there was just nothing that worked. But, Matt has been with a number of teams that had joint practices, and he thinks there's some real benefits in it. So it made a lot of sense, and we have a good relationship with the Texans organization. Rich, we gotta have a call out to all bikers. We need extra bikers to come out for the Texans game, or the Texans for the practices.
Yeah, one question.
Sure.
Kind of circling back to the draft. Why did 2022? Was it 22 or 20?
Yeah, I'm looking at whoever got it. I think it was whoever got it in 23 was not available for 22, so they skipped over it.
Does that make that a prime slot for Green Bay possibly, or is 24 more realistic?
It's a good question. Just kind of thinking ahead of where we might be for the expo hall. We think the expo hall is going to be completed in like January of 22. Which one? 21. So 21. So we wanted to make sure it was a year after that in case there were any delays. But I don't necessarily think so. I think 22 Titletown will be further developed, but by 24 even further developed.
Did you get a head count today, number of folks?
4,200.
4,200, yeah.
When you talk before fans like that today, you talk about maybe some public perception of the team being conservative free agency in the past, or any other comments or criticisms. How important do you feel that is to address those directly to fans, or to get in front of it whenever you do interviews or have
Well, no, I think it's, in my role, it's important to be supportive of our general manager and the decisions that he makes. I will tell you one thing. In the past, I heard from a lot of fans that, why aren't you more active in free agency? Why don't you get out in free agency? Now we were active this year, and it's like, well, geez, we spent a lot of money in free agency. So, no, but, it's one of those things. It's kind of like the draft or free agent. I mean, it takes time to judge and to really evaluate it properly. But, as I said, I mean, Brian, he's been in his position a little over a year and a half. I've been very impressed with the way he's handled himself. Although he's, new to the position as general manager, I think he's had great experience. And I think, obviously he has tremendous respect for Ted, learned a lot from Ted, but he's put his own stamp on it.
But you feel it's important to put that out there directly, that you hear all those kinds of comments, and some you feel need to be.
Yeah, I mean, you can't run your organization based on what we think fans. And I try not to read comments, and I know there's a lot of opinions in there, but yeah, no, it's the beauty of our business is it's all determined on the field, and you're either going to have success or not, and everybody tries to like the grades for the draft right away. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, you really need 2 to 3 years to really evaluate different personnel decisions. But I would say, I mean, Brian, he and his staff put the time in, they study, and so we're not just flippantly going out and making decisions. I mean, he's when he makes a move, he's studied it and really is. So it's a decision that he's thought through and believes it'll be the best for our team.
Back to the CBA real quick. There have been a number of reports about the league wanting to have a extension in place prior to the 100th season kicking off. Do you think that's a realistic possibility?
Well, nothing's impossible, Aaron, but September 5th is coming up pretty quickly. Yeah, I think, we'd love to get a deal done, but it's a pretty complicated negotiation. If we could get something done sometime, during the season or before the end of the season, I think that would be great as well.